Now, I'm just checking if
Oh,
it is live. Is it
feel like I'm
live?
shooting back through a bush. Is it live? Is anyone out there?
I don't know. It's saying that we've been live for 6 seconds, but I can't see it on my channel. So hopefully somebody will say, "Oh, you're live." Oh, people are here. There are people here
Excellent.
apparently.
Hello,
I'm
people.
amazed you haven't changed your caption to Louise Savage Muses.
Yeah, no, well, because I'm a bit slow.
You've got to think these things through, Louise.
No,
You've
I'm
got to
not
think
used to
these
all this
things through. So
stuff.
hopefully people are joining us. I can see there's a few people here, a few people, more people coming. That's exciting. Oh, and we're
Oh,
getting
yeah.
comments now. Sheen Wooding says we're live. Rosie J says thanks, Doc. I don't know what that means. And Jenny M says hello, and Miss Victory said hello all. So we are here live at the end of Autumn Book Hibernation to have a bookish autumn catch up,
Yeah.
and at about 7:30, fingers crossed if it works, we'll be joined by Elodie Harper, who The Wolf Den, which I found out is her third novel. The Wolf Den was our group read, so we'll be talking about that and everything else that we've got reading, what we didn't get reading, all those things. And if you've got any questions, please let us know in the comments. Hello, Sarah Deacon. Hello, Emma Sibley. Hello, Crystal31CL. So, firstly, though, we have been chatting just about this now because I dropped a bit of a bombshell in a Instagram earlier that I actually thought I'd talked to Mum about and apparently hadn't, which is I think this is going to be my last book hibernation because, and Mum did a face. Do the face you did, Mum. No, it
I
wasn't
can't
that
remember what
one.
it was. No, it was this one.
Yes, it was that.
Sorry, everybody out there, especially if you're eating your tea.
That was a delightful face that Mum did, where basically the reason for this is don't everyone be sad. I can see, look, Miss Fix Reads has just done a sad emoji, but the reason
It's
for that
fine.
is we did it for 2 weeks this time, and I still felt a little bit pressured by it. In terms of like, even though I said I wasn't going to force myself to read every prompt, and I didn't read every prompt, I still tried to. So, what we're thinking of doing, and we would love all of your suggestions right now or in the comments down below after this video has gone live, we would love to know what we could do instead. Because I was thinking what we could do is have like make loads of different prompts and put them in a mug, and at the start of every month me and Mum could pick a reading prompt for the other one to have to fulfill, and that could be really fun.
Could it be a wine glass? Oh no, that's see-through.
That is see-through, so that might give it away slightly, but also I've got lots of mugs. So I need to use them for
You are
something.
a mug.
I am a mug as well. Yes, thank you, Louise. But also then if you wanted to, you could do my prompt, or you could do Mum's prompt, or you could do both. So that's sort of, I was thinking of savage suggestions because you know me, I absolutely love some alliteration. I was born with it. So yes, I think that's because I think, as we'll discuss, Mum hasn't said anything yet, but as we'll discuss,
Quite all right.
I've been monologuing for 3 minutes and 37 seconds. As we'll discuss, yeah, we accidentally put pressure on ourselves. But first of all, Mum, how are you? And how's your channel doing?
I'm fine, thank you. And my channel is just, well, I'm speechless, really. It's doing well, very well, better than I anticipated. But I think that's largely due to the fact that you've mentioned it. So
Well, it's interesting that you say that I mentioned it because I've yet to be
yeah,
mentioned.
I know.
I found it
We
very interesting that you mentioned Monique Roth's The Mermaid of
yeah,
Black Conch, which had been signed by Monique, and your son was the Costa judge.
but thing is, you're doing so much, I can't keep track. And also, just patience is a virtue. I'm sure you'll get a mention before too long.
Well, all I'm saying is
Careful what you wish for, love.
I said that I would mention you in a vlog, but I didn't do a link. In the description box, I refused because the second time I didn't get a mention, that was it. Oh, now this is a lovely question before we have a chat about, because you were asking about projects that you want to do, Mum. And
Yeah.
Monet Doyle has said, hello, will you be doing any book things for the Christmas holidays? And we will be together because
You
Mum
will.
is coming here for Christmas.
Well, it was. I'm not sure I am anymore.
I did say that Christmas was cancelled, but actually, Chris has created a very fancy menu that's being sent to everybody on WhatsApp. So be warned, with choices. Anyway, but we could do something for Christmas. I was actually thinking if I managed to get to 25,000 followers by Christmas, I could do a savage quiz live on
Oh, that
YouTube
would
on
be
Christmas
fun. I
Day.
love quiz.
But I thought it'd be nice for us to do on
Writing the
Christmas
scores on the
Day.
doors.
Well, we could all do a round each, I thought, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
it'd be lovely because if people like aren't able to see their family or whatever this Christmas, if we did it on actual Christmas Day, it means
Mm.
there's something for people to come and join in with. Anyway, that's an idea if I get 25,000 followers by then, which I probably won't. Anyway, Autumn Book Hibernation. Let's get to that. How did you get on, Mum? Also, this has just made me laugh. Is this aimed at me, Miss Fix Reads? Because it could be true.
I've really enjoyed it. I think I don't know whether it's because I love autumn. I don't know whether it's because I've had a little bit more time. Not sure, but I've loved it. I've really enjoyed the group read, but I won't talk about that now because I'll come onto that later. And everything I've picked up has been really engaging. And also I think I always forget before book hibernation what an eclectic mix of books it throws up. So I've really enjoyed that as well, sort of having, lots of different things to get my teeth into. So it's good.
Well, I think as well that was one of the reasons that I thought like maybe it's time for the end of book hibernations because I've been doing them for 2 years. Tom's kind of left social
Yeah.
media for now, and he was very much a part of it. But also, I think it's been a really good one. It's been 2 weeks long, and also it's my favourite season, so a great way to end on a high. But also taking different things away from it that we can do, like with maybe Savage Suggestions, where we do 1 or 2 prompts for each other every month next year. I just think that it's a lot less stressful.
Yeah, I think that, and also consider we know from the start of the year where it's headed potentially.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it could be, every quarter or something, we do a buddy read together that everyone can join in with if they want to, which would still have that feel of that the feel of Autumn Book Hibernation. But yeah, you know what I mean. And this is what I'm pleased to see. I didn't read many on my initial list. I went off on my own merry way. Some good reads though, and that's the joy of it, and that's what's lovely about it. But I think as well, it can sort of, I don't know. I've got into a real downer the mid Saturday because the week before I'd worked so hard. I'd done like what 4 12-hour days and 1 15-hour day. I hadn't had any time to read, and then actually it became a burden rather than
Yeah, you already, don't you?
yeah. So anyway, so basically this is probably the end of book hibernation, but we'll be back with something else next year because 2020 we're very excited about, and we might talk about 2020 before Elodie joins us later. Who can say? But shall we go through the prompts?
Yeah.
See how we did.
Yeah.
So I think the first prompt was, I'm going to say the first prompt to last because I think the first prompt was a book with orange on the cover, which I'm including The Wolf Den as, and we can talk about that later, maybe.
Okay.
Does that sound like a good idea? Oh, this is very nice from Kay Dewey. This makes me think, oh, let's do it forever. And I'm like, no, stick to your guns,
Yeah,
Savage.
no, I agree with her though on that one. I really agree. It does. I mean, maybe we can think of something else that makes you look at your shelves in a different way though.
But I think it could be these prompts. If we do like a couple of prompts a month, I think that could be really good. And it's almost like if we're doing them for each other, we can be devious. Give really, really tough prompts. Anyway, so what are the other prompts? Because this was lovely as well, and that's the other reason that I wanted.
Just asking, have you ever read War and Peace?
Don't you dare.
I love it. It's one of my favourite books.
No, but you can't suggest a specific book, Louise.
No, I just remembered that.
It's got to be a prompt. But it could be like something over 500 pages or 700 pages or something. That could be quite anyway. But maybe you could do them in colours. You could do naughty but nice. What was it, the game that Bong used to play?
Naughty nice or nonsense, or not at all.
Not at all. Oh, there's something about that. Let's do something with that.
Alliteration again.
Oh, I love it. Absolutely live for alliteration. Live for it, love it. Anyway, so what were the other prompts? Because that was the other thing I was going to say, sorry. The thing that I loved was that this time people got to pick the prompts. And I think that's
Yes.
a really nice element to it. And it could be that we ask people to pick the prompts for each other, or pick a proper pepper, whatever the saying is. Anyway, moving on. So which was your book with fall on the cover?
Well, you see, I had two.
Honestly, that's just showing off.
I did talk about this the other day when we were live on last Monday, was it, in London? When the Sky Falls by Phil Earle. It's got an orange cover. It's got flames, but it also has the word fall in it. And I thought this was brilliant. I can't rave about it enough. And then I was lucky enough to meet him, wasn't I, on Tuesday evening?
There
What
was
a
some
lovely
fangirling
man.
going on. There was fangirling for me with Claudia Winkleman, and then with you and Phil Earle, and then we were both fangirling over Sarah Woodman.
Yeah. I just thought it was lovely. But this book, if you've never come across it, it would be a great one to buy for Christmas for children in your family, maybe. But it's a story about a very angry little boy. He's really, really angry. He's done the reverse of what children normally do. He's evacuated from the countryside into the city because his grandmother just can't handle him. His father's away at war. His mother, we don't know where she is. And to cut a very long story short, because Simon's told me I've got to be quicker, and I know I ramble.
It's fine when you're doing your musings over on Louise Savage Muses.
No, I should be Leslie then. I think that's, yeah. But I don't know if you can see, I'm trying to do this. Oh no, I'm trying to show you that here, there's an outline of a gorilla, because what happens is he forms a sort of relationship with a gorilla. At first, he's terrified of it, doesn't like it at all. But then gradually, they bond. And it's an absolutely brilliant story. You know, it's about the life of a zoo during wartime. It's one of the richest books I've read in a very long time. Real humanity in it. Well worth
Lovely stuff. I read, and I bought this especially, actually.
Wait to interrupt. I had another fall one.
Oh yeah, sorry. Blimey, we could be here a while. I might go and make a cup of tea.
Actually, what I might do is talk about that when we come to the non-fiction. So carry on.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Louise.
Quite all right.
Both of us being Salty Savage. Maybe that's the new joint channel that we need to do, Salty Savage, or a podcast. Anyway, so my fall one, and if you did a fall choice, let us know in the comments. I'd love to hear. And also, I did spot this. KJ, we will do this. We'll do a group read every now and then, maybe like 2 or 3 times a year. Or it could be that we read one of the Women's Prize longlist books together or something like that. That'd be lovely. Anyway, so the book that I actually bought this, I said I wasn't going to buy any books, but because I got a bit pressured and I wanted something shorter, I picked up Poems to Fall in Love With chosen and illustrated by Chris Riddell. And it's so lovely, like genuinely. I mean, The Owl and the Pussycat, absolute treat. But the whole thing is done, and the last few poems made me cry, because he looks at all different forms of grief, and the last one is all looks at different forms of love, and the last one was grief. And I just found those poems, like Tomorrow When You Will Not Wake, honestly, it just broke me. It was so sad. But then there was also ones that I absolutely loved, like Otters, and shock horror. I enjoyed 2 Shakespeare sonnets.
Which ones were they?
I can't remember, but they were very good. But also what I loved about it was, because Chris Riddell isn't pretentious.
Oh, are you still there?
Yeah.
It's all right. You've disappeared off my screen. Sorry.
What's happened?
It's fine. It's all right. I think there's a phone call coming in, but I'm just ignoring it.
Oh, goodness me.
It's the window cleaner.
She's so popular now. Anyway.
I can't see you anymore. That's my problem.
Oh, is it because there's a different thing open?
Yeah. Ooh, I've just lost a book as well.
She's throwing things in the floor.
It's all right. I'm a professional. I'll carry on talking even though I can't see you.
While Louise tries to find me somehow, and have you got a StreamYard open?
I did have.
You need your internet open. Anyway, well, while Louise sorting that out, I'll just
say
I really loved Poems to Fall with it, because he's not pretentious. What I loved is there's a real mixture of like Auden and there's Shakespeare, but then also there's like Edward Lear and poems like the Bongy Boo and all of those kind of stuff. So I just thought it was absolutely fantastic. Now I'm going to mention some books that people read. FC Berry UK, I chose Scabby Queen and Iron Widow as my orange cover prompts, and Uncanny Valley as my non-fiction. I'd already read The Wolf Den. Hooray, lovely. Scabby Queen, I really, really want to read. April read Snowfall of Silver by Laura Wooden. Loved it. I've not heard of that. It was a comfort read as well as a fall read. Very clever. Miss Vix read Poems to Fall in Love with as well. Adored the Otters and the Small Dragon. Yes, gorgeous. So yeah, right now, next prompt was cozy read. What did you pick as a cozy read, Louise?
I read, again, I talked about it the other day. I read
People might not have seen that though.
No, sorry.
Honestly, look at her. And do you know what? Chris, when we were watching Mum's latest video, there was a point where Mum said, you know, oh, I thought I might get a few hundred videos, and Chris Hilarious went, did she now? Well, did she now? Anyway, sorry.
As I was saying, I read The Appeal by Janice Hallett. It's in all the bookshops in the UK at the moment, it would appear. It's been a real sort of sensation. Hit. Oh, hit. I thought you said it. I thought, what does he mean? So anyway, I loved it because it has so many different voices in it, and it's a murder mystery, which I've sort of remember curling up with Agatha Christie and things like that when I was younger. Partly hooked me on reading, really. And so, yeah, I wanted something murder mystery. It's all about an amateur dramatic group. It doesn't take itself too seriously. And you're sort of trying to solve you're trying to work out who's going to be murdered first. So you're kind of introduced to all the characters through their own thoughts. So there's emails, there's all sorts of bits of evidence. And then eventually you're trying to solve the crime. So yeah, I thought it was really entertaining. I did struggle with one element, which was one of the characters in it really, really, really annoyed me. But I think she was supposed to, you know. So I found that tricky to sort of force myself to you couldn't ignore her, because actually she's probably the main character. But yeah, I found that jarring. In the same way that some satire, you know, when satire is a bit too close to the bone. But anyway, yeah, no, The Appeal, I recommend.
Oh, just to go back to Falling, Kay Dewey read Falling Angels after a 16-year gap and loved it again. I'm assuming that's the one by Tracy Chevalier, which is about Highgate Cemetery, which I used to be a tour guide at, as did Tracy. FC Berry UK also read The Madness of Grief, as Simon recommends. I'm assuming that was a non-fiction one. I loved that book. Jenny read What It Means When a Man Falls from the Sky by Leslie and Nika Arima. I love that short story collection, and I've got a story about that short story collection, which is Ayobami Adebayo bought me a copy of that all the way from Africa when I met her. Oh. How nice is that? And it was absolutely phenomenal. You'd love it because you love short stories, Mum. Miss Fitzrees read The Haunting Season as my cozy read. I think that's
that
short story collection, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, with Kira Millwood Hargreave and et al.
Elizabeth McNeil and Elaine saying group read would be amazing, but something available worldwide. I'm in soggy Vancouver because BC Canada and some titles are later arriving here. I would like, actually, because one of my plans for 2022 is to read more backlist books rather than newer books, possibly.
Right.
Depends. Well, that work reads will always probably be newer, but you know what I mean? I'd like to get through some of the books on my actual shelves, not just the ones that are incoming. So we could do some older books. Kay Dewey read The Hoarder for my cozy one and loved it. We love Jess Kidd. She's a Savage household favourite.
She is.
Sarah Deacon was a reread of The Subtle Knife. That book blew my mind. I couldn't understand it at all. Diary of a Provincial Lady for a cozy read, an old favourite. Granny used to have a copy of that by the bed. Cozy read was The Winds Are Not by S.J. Bennett. I think that's where the Queen becomes a detective.
Oh,
quite an interesting one. My cozy read was the first, sorry, I keep calling it the First Thursday Murder Club every time. It's because there was a book show that I loved in Australia called the First Tuesday Book Club, and every time I just put Thursday. Anyway, this is the first in a series. I was not sure how I'd go on with this, and also I caused a little bit of a stir when I stole Richard's prize at the event me and Mum were hosting and tweeted about it, and everyone thought I'd actually won it. I don't know how funny Richard or his publishers found that. Anyway, let's move on swiftly. But this, I really, really, really enjoyed it. Like, really enjoyed it. I've already bought the second one, but it's set in an old people's home. It's about a group who meet every Thursday to solve old cold case murders, and then a murder actually happens at the old people's home and they get involved to investigate. The characters are amazing. Elizabeth was clearly an MI5 spy, but she never says so, but she always hints about it. Joyce is a nurse. She knows all about medicines, and it's just really, really well done, and it's really twisty-turny. The only criticism I have is that I don't think you could have guessed the killers. And I kind of need to feel like you can in order to be really part of it, part of the group. So I don't know if that's going to be a change. If anyone's read this, let me know if you felt the same. I also found I'm a bit bored of books where it's the fat people or the diabetics that get jokes made about them. And that happened in this. It happens in Graham Norton's books a little bit. And it's just, that's probably just coming from me as a bigger bloke who has diabetes. But yeah, anyway, but overall, really, really, really enjoyed it. So looking forward to the second one. So, oh, Kellyanne, I'm not going to share everyone with that anyone because it could be a spoiler. Don't look away, everyone. Look away. People make more comments. So yes, that was my cozy read. Did you read a book with a forest on the cover?
Do you know, I don't think I did. I think
I'm aware Elodie's joining us in 8 minutes, so we've got to whiz through.
We'll whiz through.
You didn't?
No, I don't think I did actually. I did pick one.
I did read one.
Oh, did you?
Very short.
Oh, nice. I like that one.
And it's called The Faster I Walk, The Smaller I Am by Kjerste A. Skomsvold, and it's translated from Norwegian. And Jen Campbell raved about this a few years ago, and I bought it then. It's withdrawn from stock. It's an old library edition. And it's about this woman who's kind of grimly obsessed with death to the point where she picks up the obituaries every week to laugh that she's lived longer than them.
Oh, I just love that idea.
It sort of goes on from there, but actually what happens then is it slowly but surely becomes a really sad story about loneliness, and how you can even be in a relationship or whatever and you can still feel really lonely. So really, 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 really recommend this.
You can be in a class full of 30 teenagers and feel lonely.
I remember those feelings when I was a kid. So yeah, no, I thought it was great. It's a short, sharp read, and that's where, like I said, this is one of the reasons, like with Book Hibernation, I wouldn't have read this otherwise, but I read this under the conditions of, I need to read something short so that I can hit all the prompts, which again isn't necessarily fair on the book. So that's that one. What about myth retelling, Mum? I know you've read that one because isn't Black Conch?
Oh yeah, it's here somewhere. I did. Thank you for reminding me.
Black Conch, which was Costa Book of the Year.
It was, somebody judged it. I can't think who it might have been.
It's also the choice for Sky Arts Book Club next month.
Is it?
Yeah.
This is amazing.
This month.
I mean, Simon has banged on about this book a lot, which sometimes makes me think I'm not going to read that for a while. Sometimes.
I'm really sorry that I'm about to do this, but
how rude! How disrespectful!
She's changed since she's become Louise Savage Musings. She's changed.
No, I'm just not feeling quite myself at the moment. Anyway, The Mermaid of Black Conch is absolutely brilliant, and I will never, ever, ever recover from the descriptions of this mermaid. I just think the thing I loved about it, in a nutshell, was that it made the mermaid completely plausible. I totally and utterly believed that she existed, and yeah, I just thought it was sensational. So it's about a mermaid that is caught and is going to be exploited. And a bloke called David, I can't remember his second name at the moment, he comes and rescues her and takes her home and puts her in his bath. And then this amazing story unfolds, which has got so many. I mean, it's not a chunky book, but there are so many really deep themes in here, and it's a really good story as well. So I just thought it was beautiful.
And if you'd like to hear Mum talk about it more, you can go to her channel,
Yes.
which I'm not mentioning anymore. So just go to some comments. Miss Vix read. I'm reading Summer Water by Sarah Moss for the Forest cover. That's one of my favourite books of the year. Amazing. A couple of you have said there were too many twists in the Thursday Murder Club. That's really
Okay.
Miss
Probably
Vix,
why you couldn't solve it.
well, maybe. Miss Vix, I did Ariadne and Medusa for my myth retellings. Both want to come to Medusa in a minute. But Ariadne, me and Mum have been meaning to read all year, and I actually got sent her new novel, Electra, the other day, which I'm very excited about. Jane Dolman read A Thousand Ships.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
Jenny M's in the middle of the myth book, The Woman of Troy by Pat Barker. I'm saying nothing about that book. Thank you, Linda. I'm aware, Mum. I love how Mum prepared too. I'm going to pretend that A Pocket Full of Stars fits a couple of the prompts as well. I'd be interested to know if Louise has read it. She thought it was lovely.
No, I don't know that book.
No.
Sorry, I didn't know about it though.
Barbara Pym's Excellent Women was cozy. Fabulous. So my myth was Medusa, the girl behind the myth, which is Jessie Burton's latest book, which I actually bought with Mum the other day. And the illustrations are gorgeous. I've opened completely the wrong page to show you that. Yeah, it's just such a brilliant book. And because Mum hasn't read it yet, I'm not going to say too much about it because I want to kind of get her opinion on it without me saying anything other than the fact that I really liked it. So yeah, we have that. And then orange cover for me was The Wolf Den by Elodie Harper. What was yours, Mum? Orange cover? Same?
Well, yes, but also When the Sky Falls.
And then I didn't do the final two prompts, and I'm aware I've got 3 minutes before Elodie's going to join us, but I did start non-fiction, which is Dear Centauran by Kweke Emeze, who has now become... Yeah. They've become one of my absolute favourite authors of all time. And the fire one, before I hand over to Mum, was going to be A Slow Fire Burning by Paula Hawkins, who I saw during Book Hibernation, but didn't read during Book Hibernation. So I shall read this probably within the next week, I think, because I'm in the mood for it. I'm in the mood for crimes now that I've read that.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, I don't. I
year as well.
I used to read a lot more, and I don't. Anyway, Mum,
sorry,
2 minutes to talk about your final prompts.
Yeah, right. Okay. So the fire prompt, I don't know if you can see that very well. What are you looking like that for?
Because I love that book so much.
I loved it as well. I didn't know whether you'd read it or not, but it's called Flames by, is it Robbie Arnott? Yeah, I think, have you read some of his other books?
I've read both his books, and I believe that I may have a quote on the UK edition.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
But I thought this, and actually it has got leaves on it, so it's sort of foresty. But anyway, this is a novel which is set in Tasmania, and it hooked me straight away because I had no idea. In fact, I keep meaning to look and see whether it actually does happen. But this young man at the beginning of the story finds a seal. He pairs up with a seal and they kind of grow together, and their job is to hunt down this huge type of tuna fish. And I was completely, and actually that was a little bit like, it did remind me, the start of this, the first chapter was a bit like Mermaid of Black Conch, actually, all those descriptions of the sea and water and catching fish and things. So that was fantastic. But what's brilliant about this book is it's very real world and it's very not.
But it's also myths and legends. It's folklore from Tasmania.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It crosses that boundary between the spiritual and the real. Because I suppose, the indigenous culture in that part of the world doesn't really make that distinction. So and it's, the writing is absolutely beautiful. So that for me was a real find, and I want to read his other books now.
That book was my second favourite book of not last year, the year before. Oh, Elodie's here. Oh, I can let Elodie in. Right, I'm adding Elodie in. Elodie, you're here.
Hello, hi. Sorry, my face is a bit huge. I'm obviously.
It's all right. I can move closer. There we go.
Go.
And then Mum looks smaller. But
just
you're live on the internet with us all. You're here.
Hello,
Very
nice
exciting.
to see you both. Thanks for having me.
We've been really looking forward to.
Oh, have you got my?
Checking. Is it
hello?
me?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Sorry about that.
It's all right. I think when all three of us come together, it's like the Avengers or something, and there's a huge power that gets released.
I should have worn a little mask. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be on.
It was so lovely to get a message from you saying, "Oh, as you're reading my book, would you like to do something?" I was like, "Yes."
Oh, well, no, I love your stuff, so it's really nice to join in. So thank you.
Also, it was perfect as well because Mum's a classicist, and we've not done a classic book or a book set in classical time, so this was ideal. It's right here.
Thank you.
So, Mum, sorry, we cut off about your non-fiction.
You want me to just quickly mention it?
Sorry, quickly.
Yes,
I'll mention it very quickly. So it's this book called Fall Down 7 Times, Get Up 8. And it's written by a young Japanese man who can't actually write in the way that we normally would. He's autistic, he's nonverbal. He wrote a previous book called Why I Jump, and I think it's brilliant because it really gives you a fantastic insight into the autistic mind. So yeah, that was my non-fiction choice. Really, really interesting book.
I would like to read that because my friend and book club co-host Melanie Sykes has just been diagnosed with autism at 51.
Oh, right.
Well,
that's interesting.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Anyway, before we go any further and start talking about the Wolf Den, which we've got lots to say, there has been a real lovely amount of people saying, "I just finished the Wolf Den, listened to it on audio and loved it. Looking forward to the next book."
Thank you.
Great book, Elodie. We've got, let's see, welcome, Elodie. Love the book. Can't wait for more.
Oh, this is so nice.
This is lovely as well because Janie was so desperate to see the chat with you. She's ditched her father-in-law and joined in. So that's lovely. Thank you, Janie. Miss Vic stayed up until 2 a.m. on Sunday finishing the Wolf Den because she was enjoying it too much to stop. And then we've also got people who have ordered it and can't wait for it to arrive. Now, I have to ask you, Elodie, when did you first get interested in Pompeii? Because the book is set in an infamous brothel in Pompeii. What was it that first got you, how did you first come across Pompeii, I guess? Was it like me being dragged around for 7 hours by your mother?
No, it wasn't. It was watching Mary Beard, but also so I studied Latin at school, and Pompeii kind of came into Latin classes. But the thing that fascinated me about Pompeii, which is kind of why I set the book in 74 AD rather than 79 AD, the first one anyway, is it's the life of the place that I find so interesting rather than just the volcano. So it's that part that really fascinated me, just how alive it is still as a town. The sort of traces of everyday living, the wheel ruts in the road, the shops, the paintings on the wall, the graffiti, the fact that people have just written this stuff and it's there for us to see. So I can't sort of put a date on it, but it's been a long time that I've been really interested in that aspect of it, of what it can tell us about what an average Roman life might have looked like.
Did you do the Cambridge Latin course, Elodie, with
I did, yes. Of course.
Because there was the dog mosaic and things like that appear, don't they, in the book? So yeah, I thought you might have done. What I'm really interested in is how you went about researching it, particularly how many trips you had to make, or whether you'd made any. I don't know.
So I actually didn't make. I made one trip to that part of Italy and then visited the site multiple times, but I didn't. I would have gone more, to be honest, but COVID intervened. So I'm really hoping to go again next year. you know, for more research, and sort of see different areas on the coast. But yeah, so I researched it with a lot of, so I'd seen the documentaries, read a lot of books on it, and in some ways, oh, we lost Simon. Or
Simon for a minute. I'm sure he'll be back.
I'm sure, hope you come back. Yeah, so I had done a lot of reading around it, and then obviously had read a lot of Latin texts, not necessarily in the original, but a lot of authors. So I had a sort of feel for the place. And then, so when I went, I kind of went with, you know, it was quite an intense visit. So I went round, spent a whole day at the museum in Naples, you know, taking masses of photographs, making notes, and then obviously at the site several days there, sort of walking around sort of street by street and making my own map of the area around the Lupana, and sort of working out where the water places were and where different bars were, and all that kind of thing. And so it's kind of split between some buildings like the Lupana that are very sort of heavily based and as accurate as I possibly could be on the actual building. And then some of the grander villas, I decided in the end not to base them on specific houses, because I just wanted to have a little bit more leeway. So they're sort of based, the composites, or based on the type of houses that you would see. But I guess because none of the houses are preserved in perfect detail, you know, I just thought that would be a bit of a headache for myself to make too many real places that, you know, I'd have to be really precise about exactly what was where. And in fact, what I wanted to do was have the houses reflect the personalities of the characters more.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's
it's interesting though, because a lot of those huge villas along, you know, that overlook the sea in the distance and so on. As I was reading the novel, it felt right. You know, I really felt like I was, you know, bringing those houses to life, particularly, you know, the hustle and bustle of Pompeii as well. I really thought that was captured brilliantly, because it must have been a really chaotic, hectic, you know, place.
Absolutely. And I think one of the amazing things about Pompeii and why I wanted to set the book there is, and but you know, there's only been a new discovery just this last month of the slaves' room. Well, I mean, they discovered it before, but only just sort of publicized, is that you get a sense of all different classes in life. And that was really what fascinated me, because so much of the writing is by elite members of Roman society, elite male members, really. And I wanted to think about the lives of enslaved people and of women. And, you know, in Pompeii, we actually do have some details of what their lives were like, unlike pretty much anywhere else.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
One thing I wanted to mention, sorry I vanished briefly because I realised that in trying to look at some comments, I accidentally swiped out of the whole thing. I don't some of the things that my new laptop can do, I don't understand. But I just want to say that we're not going to do any spoilers in this chat, because we're aware that there are some people who bought the book because me and have started raving about it. But I did want to say that Think Why Not absolutely loved Wolf Den, such an incredible read. And one of the things that I really wanted to ask you was, I discovered only today that you wrote crime fiction first. And I wondered how you used writing crime fiction in the past to write this, because it's got a propulsion to it and it has a pace and it's very page turning. So how did you kind of use that skill set for Amalia's story, really?
So it's funny, because the first book that I wrote, I ended up kind of rewriting it as crime. That's how it was bought, but it had been a kind of ghost story with mythical undertones of Greek myth, and then the supernatural element, you know, I had to dial back on in the rewrites, and it was a 2-book deal to write crime, which I found really enjoyable, and kind of fitted in with my sort of day job as a journalist, you know, my other career, because obviously I cover a lot of court cases and things like that. So, you know, a lot of the research was done for me, if you like, in that way. And yeah, it's true. Sort of I guess the sort of they were probably closer to thrillers than pure crime, I would say. And definitely writing in the thriller genre first, you do carry on that, you know, there's quite a lot of stuff happens in the wolf den. But for me, I mean, historical fiction's kind of the genre I love most to read. It was what I always wanted to write, but I think I probably needed a bit more confidence to take that leap, because there is that extra layer of all the research that you have to do, rather than, I'm not saying it's more difficult to write than contemporary fiction, absolutely not, but just, I guess you're being judged on another level as well as just the book. So but yeah,
can I ask, because I was interested as I was reading it, because obviously there's lots of research about Pompeii. Did you do any research with regard to sort of contemporary prostitution and brothels? And
no, I actually very deliberately didn't,
right,
because I didn't want to, I mean, appropriate's a bit of a loaded term, so maybe I don't quite mean it in that way, but I was happy if things about the ancient world reflected on our world, and definitely in sort of slightly less controversial areas, I did sort of deliberately play with that, particularly in the relationships between men and women and what is regarded. It's almost like an anti-Pretty Woman story in a way, and that was deliberate in terms of what does it mean for a wealthy client to have an affair with a prostituted woman or a sex worker, or how, you know, modern terms is slightly different, but. So that was, I guess that was a play on romantic tropes of the current day. But no, I felt really strongly that the sort of actual lives and experiences of people in the ancient world, from that group of society, have been so neglected that I did want to really just focus on them and on that side of things. Because it's just so fascinating, the clues that are left, you know, and particularly for the second book that I've just written as well, which looks about sort of freed people's lives and enslaved people's lives, you know, like the tombstones that people have left, just these like glimpses of how they saw themselves. There's a beautiful terracotta tile where two enslaved women have left their footprints and written their names and said they were friends. So you get this kind of sense, I think, sometimes looking at the ancient world, oh, you know, like the enslaved people, they would just have accepted they were enslaved and they were content with their lot. And actually, I don't think the evidence points that way at all, that people were content with their lot of being enslaved. They were pretty discontented. So yeah, I wanted to sort of look at the horror of slavery in the ancient world as it was specifically in the ancient world.
I really loved your take on the freedmen, actually, because I loved the fact that it was excruciating to read how hard they were trying to fit in. And I thought that was so, it rang true to me. I mean, you know, things like Petronius and so on, you know, Trimalchio, it's that whole sort of, you know, that desire to be accepted, but not really knowing how to go about it. And
oh, thank you. I mean,
fascinating.
That was one of my favorite scenes to write. One I thought about a lot, because obviously Trimalchio's feast in the Satyricon, Petronius's book, is so famous and it's brilliant and it's really funny, but it's also, Trimalchio is the butt of jokes.
Yeah.
He's an unsympathetic figure ultimately. And I just thought, I wonder what it would look like if you flipped the perspective, if he was the sympathetic figure. I'm not saying that Zoilus in that scene is like a hero, but, you know, seeing it from a slightly different angle, I found really interesting to do. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I really loved that.
And there's a line in that banquet scene when one of the other characters says that he freed his wife because he didn't want anybody to wipe their dirty hands on her hair.
Yeah.
And that just kind of, just those throwaway details that you sometimes get in Latin texts, just there's so much in that line that although Petronius isn't saying it necessarily particularly sympathetically, you just feel for it, that, you know, it wasn't just that people were enslaved, they had to see their loved ones being treated in a certain way as well. And just, so I sometimes tried to look at Latin texts in that way of looking at it, but trying to just take a slightly different angle.
Yeah, good.
We've got more comments of absolutely love The Wolf Den, brilliant read. more. I love the world and so excited for the next
Oh.
one. And this brings to a question from me, actually, where Miss Vixby said, I loved how individual all the women were. And where did their voices come from? Because Amara, I don't know why I called her Amara earlier, but
No, don't
Amara,
worry.
where did her voice come from? But also, you know, Dido, or there's these amazingly different voices from all different perspectives. Like, how many voices did you have in your head at once?
So many. I really loved all of them. So I guess a sort of variety of jumping off points. So I'm really glad that the women come across as individuals, and of course they're that first and foremost. So I tried to make them real characters, real people. But I guess the jumping off point was thinking about the profoundly different backgrounds that they all have. Their very different routes into slavery, which again would have been something that was real in the ancient world. I mean, Amara's story as a doctor's daughter to a slave is a bit far-fetched, but you know, people were sold into slavery when they reached a point of destitution. So that certainly happened, and that gives her a really unique perspective in the brothel, because she knows what it's like to have been free and respected, and she's educated, and so she's profoundly discontented with her lot and has the impetus to try and get out. So she's kind of, you know, she's a very dynamic character in that way. Dido's path as a kidnap victim was incredibly common, but she's a very different personality to Amara. She's much more vulnerable and sensitive, which again is, you know, it's a very brutal life to find yourself in. So I wanted to have a character like Dido who reflected just how difficult it would have been and what a profound adjustment it would have made. But then somebody like Victoria, who was born into slavery, although it's not easier for her in that sense, she doesn't have anything to compare it to in the same way. And so her way of making peace with the life is, you know, to embrace it, I guess, for want of a better word. You know, if that's what she has to do, she's going to be the best at it she can be. So I guess she's the most stereotypical character in the sense of how characters from that lifetime in the ancient, you know, in historical fiction brothels, you often get the kind of way out there one. So, you know, but I just felt like it's not that she's really enjoying it, it's just how she's coping with it. Yeah. And then Berenice is from a completely different part of the Roman Empire, and Cressa is slightly older. So yeah, all their different experiences impact on their personalities and kind of what they bring to the story. Berenice was a character who grew on me hugely. So initially she's kind of like the butt of jokes, because I think we've all been Berenice or known Berenice out of our friends who has like the wildly unsuitable boyfriend that no one else can stand and just thinks, what is all this pining over this hopeless man? But actually by the end I was really fond of her.
I love Victoria, and what you mentioned there was the competitive nature of it, which actually becomes very comical because she is competitive in some incredibly interesting situations, we shall say. And one thing that I really loved about the book was that it's, for me, I think what you do so brilliantly is that it's a book that's a romp in many ways, and it's very funny, but actually there's a lot of themes and layers going on with it, and actually there's a lot of serious. And it's interesting that you were saying to Mum that you weren't comparing anything now, because actually I found there was quite a lot that does, in the fact, you know, how we look at and how we look at, I mean, there's been the whole thing, hasn't there, about OnlyFans and everyone judging it, where during the pandemic, that's actually how some people have made money and stayed able to pay their mortgage. But society looks at men or women doing that in a very different way, which hasn't really changed. When the book was finished, were you shocked, having not almost paid attention to that, if you know what I mean, to then see that it hasn't gone as far forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is quite depressing. And some of the things that I wrote when I was very sort of consciously trying to look at the ancient world mindset towards gender and sex, and, you know, none of the women are feminists as such. So I tried to make, you know, Amara's desire to escape, that was common for enslaved people. They would want to better their individual circumstances. But yeah, I think writing it, and then, as you say, this sort of stigma and prejudice against sex work is still very much a thing. Of course, it's really complex in this book because none of them have chosen to be sex workers. You know, it's very much not something that they have chosen for themselves. And just the sort of power dynamic in relationships and how it is still, you know, and I enjoy a romance book as much as the next person, you know, the rich man who comes in and sweeps you off your feet and, you know, great. But yeah, just when you really think about where that comes from, that massive power imbalance, and that is still perceived as you know, romantic, that I think that aspect kind of played on my mind. And actually, just to flip back to another question, one thing I was going to say about Victoria in particular, who you mentioned, she is based on actual graffiti in the brothel.
Oh wow!
There is most of the graffiti in chapter 9, when Amara's in sort of brooding in the cells and looking at the graffiti and talks about Victoria Victrix, Victoria the Conqueress, like multiple graffitis about this really sort of loudmouth character. That's all real. That's there. So
I love that. I absolutely love that. And also, I should say, Mum, if you've got a question, but people, if you've got any questions watching, do let us know, because this is your chance to ask Elodie anything about the book that you would like, within reason, you source box. Mum,
I wanted to ask a question. Actually, it's not about the book, but I wanted to ask what your sort of favourite fiction was about the ancient world.
Oh, I love so much. I mean, I do love Circe, Madeline Miller's Circe. I mean, that's probably my absolute favourite. You know, it's massive for a reason, because it's just exquisite. It's the character, the central character is wonderful. Just the way that she plays with the mythology, what she takes from it, how she looks at it from a new angle. It's just brilliant. I love Great Goddesses by Nikita Gill, which oh, honestly, you would adore it. So it's poetry, but it reads like a novel, so it's a sort of poetic novel, and it's imagining what the gods would do after the fall of Olympus. And what you were very flatteringly saying, Simon, about, you know, trying to mix quite brutal things with humor. She definitely does that as well. Like, there are some very hard-hitting themes in there, but it's also very romantic and very funny. You know, like Eris is washed up in a bar, and yeah, it's a wonderful book. And I love Ariadne by my friend Jennifer Saint. Can't wait for her Electra. I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah, I mean, just so many. There are ones that are less well known that I really enjoy. So Counting the Stars, which is about the Roman poet Catullus, by Helen Dunmore.
Oh wow!
Oh, I love Helen Dunmore.
It's a while since I've read that one, but I absolutely loved it at the time. So yeah.
Fab.
Right, I'm just going to go through some lovely comments. The women were wonderful, but I also felt really sorry for the lad. I think KG Paris, who was a male slave too, even though he was not the nicest of people. I thought that was really interesting, because all the characters are flawed in various different ways, and they're victims in the fact that they are enslaved and are doing this because they have no choice. But at the same time, they can be quite villainous and devious too. Did you enjoy also adding all of those multi-dimensions to them?
I did. So like Felix, who's the villain, you know, I really enjoyed, I guess, messing with people's heads as more is revealed about Felix, that makes him, if not sympathetic, then perhaps more understandable. Paris was one of my favorite characters. So, and he was kind of a product of the research. Sorry. Because initially, you know, I just had this kind of idea in my head that the Romans were much more enlightened about people being gay. And then as I read the research, I was like, actually, no, this sort of horrible power dynamic that they had between men and women also was in gay relationships. And so Paris is kind of treated as a woman, you know, and suffers the prejudice that women face, but also an additional prejudice. So yeah, I found his character, and I deliberately didn't make him actually gay, So he's just like a straight guy who's engaged in this line of work, you know, with male clients. Also because the Romans didn't really have a concept of gay and straight. Like they just sort of saw people would be attracted to either. Well, women didn't really get allowed to be attracted to anyone, but you know, so there wasn't that kind of labeling of people. But yeah, I just found, thinking about Paris and how being the focus of so much isolation and prejudice, what impact might that actually have on a person? And maybe it wouldn't make you the nicest person. You know, he's so isolated, and really, you know, the women aren't very welcoming towards him. So his option is to try and be as unpleasant as the sort of most unpleasant men to get a position for himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the way that Amara as well. I mean, she does some surprising things.
Yeah.
There was a moment or two where she wasn't the person I thought she was for a while.
I thought that was great though, because there were moments when she does stuff and she's aware what she's doing is dangerous for other people, particularly, but she still does it because. But then you would, in that situation, if you were trying to get your way out of something, I think. Yeah, and it's interesting you just said that, because Helen Hickey said, I really warmed to Amara as I read the book. I loved all the different characters. Ian Shaw's just ordered it in Glasgow.
Oh, that's nice.
Theodora has done the same. I don't know if she's in Glasgow or not. We've got somebody who has booked it. That's the term we use apparently in libraries, according to me. Reserved, that's the word, at Central Library Swindon. I love how specific that is, Kellyanne. I'm actually going to be in Swindon in a couple of weeks in that very library, be warned. Very important question from Cheryl. Is it available in the States yet?
So it's coming out in the States at the end of March.
Hooray!
You can order it from Blackwell's, who will do free shipping if you truly can't wait till March. But yeah, no, it's coming out in March in the States.
And what's the cover like in the States? Is it?
I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know if it'll be the same or if they're going to do something different. So that's kind of what they're thinking about at the moment.
Yeah, people are going wild over Cersei. People are going wild. Kellyanne's asking if everyone else is buffering or is it just her? But I'm all right. Are you both all right?
I'm all right.
Yeah, it's all good. Okay, good. What I wanted to ask you, and I find this fascinating with research, is how you must have done so much research and yet you must have to kill a lot of it.
Yes, you really do.
Feel real, because people then wouldn't be thinking, oh, look, Vesuvius is just over there. And you don't do any of that foreshadowing with that.
No, absolutely none. And weirdly, when I was writing the book, I genuinely didn't think Vesuvius was going to erupt myself. I know that sounds a bit nuts. Yeah. But, you know, I just wrote it as if that wasn't going to happen. Like, just, you know, they didn't know it was going to happen. They didn't even know it was a volcano. So I had to try and detach from it. As I've gone through the second book, that was not as easy to do. And, you know, and there are earthquakes and things that were happening in the build up, you know, in the years leading up to Vesuvius erupting. But yeah, so much research gets dumped because my rule of thumb was, what would you notice walking down a street today? And you would not be noticing masses and masses and masses of detail at all. I did make life a bit easier for myself, making Amara Greek and both foreign and also a newcomer to Pompeii. So she notices more because of that than, say, if I'd made the book by Victoria, who was born there. So, you know, we get her noticing more things. But yeah, and actually the second book has freaked me out even more in terms of what I've ditched, because a lot of it's in a more domestic setting, without giving any spoilers, but it is called The House with the Golden Door. So, you know, a lot of it's set in a house with a golden door. And yeah, just so many details about daily Roman life that I just junked in the end, because it was just like, you know, if I have everyone having their feet washed before they have dinner, or like, you know, you can clog up the story with so many details. So, you know, and you can't make everyone happy, because then some people are like, oh, why wasn't there more about the shopkeepers of Pompeii? And I was like, well, it just didn't really come into the plot. So yeah.
I think that's brilliant though. I think it's the subtlety, isn't it, of, you know, like you say, things that people would take for granted shouldn't be mentioned, because
no,
it becomes too conscious as you're reading it as well, if you're not
but
careful.
also you don't want to be forced into anyone else's version of Pompeii. Like the joy is like I remember it quite vividly because of that 7 hours I'm never going to get back. Although I do feel like I would go back now, Mum, and maybe actually me, you and Elodie can do a video from Pompeii.
Oh, that would be fun.
That's the idea. For the end of the trilogy, but I'm aware of time, and I'm also aware that I think there is a buffering thing which will work itself out in the once it goes up, if that makes sense, because it's doing it live, but I think some people are having buffering issues. But honestly, thank you so much for this, Elodie, because it was a real,
it's been so nice to chat to you both.
And hopefully me and Mum have said that we are finishing book hibernation. This is the last one, but we will be doing group reads together, so maybe we can do The House with the Golden Door.
Oh, that would be lovely. Well, it comes out in May.
Oh, lovely. Right, well, there we are, we're sorted. And if you're looking to if you are in America, which lots of viewers I know are, as Elodie said, it's at the end of March, and I'm saying treat yourself to it as a 40th birthday present to you from me, even though it's my 40th, not all of yours. So that's my plug, and also managing to mention the fact I'm getting old next year. But no, thank you so much. It's been a real treat. And if you stay on with us, Elodie, we will end the broadcast and then we can chat a little bit afterwards.
That would be lovely. That would be great.
Thank you for everybody who's joined in. Thank you for everyone who has read the book. And me and Mum will be announcing savage suggestions, or whatever we're going to call it, naughty, nice, or nonsense, or not at all, probably in the new year. Sorry, Elodie, that won't make any sense whatsoever, but it will afterwards. Yeah, huge thank you, everyone, and we will all speak to you soon. And if you haven't got it yet, get it. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for having me on. Bye.